citizen of Wisconsin. Kingdom citizen, kingdom citizen, yeah, yeah, kingdom citizen. Blessings, 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 and welcome. Welcome back to Think About It Tuesday. And you guys, we are live, we are live, we are live, no pre-recording. And I have with me, waiting on the other half, but I have with me, AKA Constitutional Queen, AKA Constitutional Mommy. Let's bring the mommy on board because you guys, I know she got so much she want to let out on Think About It Tuesday. So besides her water bag breaking, she got a lot to say. So let's bring her on. Sarah.
That better not happen for a few more months.
A few more months. Better not happen. Yes.
My baby is only about this big right now. Not ready to be born yet.
Not ready. I know that's right. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
We
Definitely
haven't
tired.
We haven't did a live in so long.
I know. It's crazy.
I know. Busy. I believe. I think you say you over the first trimester.
Yep. So I'm about 14 weeks. 14, 15 weeks, something like that. So I'm in the second trimester, which they like to call it the golden trimester, and it's never been quite golden for me, but I'll take it. I'll take it over hurling over a basket.
And y'all, since we like doing lives, we're gonna do a live while she's giving birth. No, I'm just joking.
Lord.
Oh, here comes the other one. She is known for being a troublemaker, a fighter, a bully, a mom, a PNA provider. Notice I said PMA provider. Why she gonna say, I'm not a provider, I am a mentor. But anyway, y'all, she is here with us, and we're excited to have the other troublemaker and go by the name AKA Mercy.
I feel like I'm like a cow or a pig being called in from pasture. Mercy.
Y'all, we got Mercy.
Oh, Lord.
And I'm an advisor.
I knew she was going to correct it. See, I know how to get y'all started. All I got to do is say a little thing to the left, and y'all going to just boom.
Oh, yes.
So how y'all doing on Think About It Tuesday?
Doing okay.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of KrisAnne Hall's archived podcast. The last couple days, and she's on fire right now. I will pull up where I'm at right now because hashtag worth it, even though I'm not usually a hashtagger. Oh, and now it's being funny. Yeah, holy cannoli. She is just killing it. The one I'm on right now. Oh, wait. Oh, there's the check marks.
You sure you got it? You okay?
Yeah. No, I usually pull it up on my phone. So when I pull it up on my computer, it's a little bit different. But the one I'm listening to right now is about the Fourth Amendment, and she's giving this example of this dude who was on probation and was subject to random breathalyzer tests, and this officer really just violated his Fourth Amendment rights and all this stuff. Am I really that far down? So I will link it because she just, if you guys remember, KrisAnne Hall is an attorney. She's a lawyer out of Florida, very constitutional.
One of the very few constitutional attorneys we actually have nowadays.
And truly constitutional, because she realizes that case law and precedents should never override the Constitution and our
Right,
God-given
exactly.
rights, our natural rights.
I mean, our founding fathers even said that this is because that's how they, I mean, that's how they did it in the past with case law and precedent and everything, and they completely overrided the unspoken constitutions from hundreds of years, you know, and that was how the judges got the it took all that power. And so the founding fathers were like, no, we're not doing that. We have a law in this world, this land. It is the Constitution, and that's what we need to follow to start with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Be the basis for everything. And if you look at every argument up to, you know, every Supreme Court decision up to a certain period in our history, they did follow precedent with the Constitution.
Yep. And when actually through some of my coaching with being a PMA advisor, it was actually recommended of us that we go back to like 1800s case law and one, look at the verbiage, the vernacular that they're using, and also look at their rulings.
Yeah.
By the way, I did find the episode. It's from October 2018, and it's called Preteens Hack Voting Sites and the Most Important 4th A lesson you will hear.
Okay.
So I will copy the share link for that and share it in the comments so it stays with the video.
Oh, well, that is so kind of you.
See, I'm not a troublemaker. I'm a helper.
Well, and so this is the funny thing. So you're really focusing in on like Constitution and all of that stuff. And I've been reading, you know, the history. Basically, I've been reading the history leading up to America's founding and everything. But then I've also, because my brain has been so foggy, I've been taking kind of not a hiatus, but just like lessening the, you know, the constitutional stuff, just because I just cannot, like, it goes in and then it does not stay there.
Okay.
So I have been focusing on that, but I also have been listening to this podcast talking about, and Amber, you're going to love this. It's called the Eden Podcast, and it's talking about the decades and centuries of misinterpretation of the Genesis 3:16 verse, where it was talking about the woman's supposed curse, right, of childbirth and all of that stuff, and how that misinterpretation has basically set the stage for the rest of misinterpreting the rest of scriptures when it deals with women and what their role is and everything. So I've been enjoying that one a whole lot. You'd probably love it, Amber.
Now,
Yeah.
should I get y'all upset when you said that and make a comment to that, or should I just be nice today?
You sure you want to go down that road, Dr. King?
I don't think I want to go down that road with you two today. Oh, but before Amber says something, I got to say this. Now that you over your first trimester,
Mm-hmm.
I think you guys got to come back to Milwaukee and do a Kingdom Constitutional Summit #2.
I would love it.
So many people are asking, and right now, it's so many people open to understanding their rights. It's so many churches. You got a phone call, Amber, right? Somebody called you about a PMA. Anna?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So you guys, I think we have to look at some dates. Y'all look them up, send me some dates. And if it doesn't line up with the Brewer game, we need to do, I'm into these Brewer games right now, but we need to do a Kingdom Constitutional Summit Part 2.
Okay.
And what we're going to do this time, we're going to again charge a nice fee. So we take care not only your hotel, not only your food, but you guys can go back with baby money.
Ooh. Now, I'm not saying I do this for the money, but that would definitely be a bonus.
No, we have to make sure you guys are taken care of, because you leaving home. Mm-hmm. You know, I hope I did a good job taking care of you the first time, but
yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, we want to make sure you guys really get it, and here's the critical part, since we're dealing with constitutional amendments and everything, is this: if churches doesn't understand their rights, then they're going to be shut up. They're going to put a muzzle on the church, and then they're going to shut churches down because
yeah.
they don't understand. They didn't understand their rights. And so churches among not even churches, business owners, because a lot of people don't know what they do is a ministry. And so what happens to them is they try to do the right thing and then they get punished because they don't know their rights. And I think go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say we've been taught for so long that we're supposed to separate the sacred from the secular, right? That our work in the public sphere is secular. It's not related in any way to God and his kingdom. And then the church is sacred, right? And so everything related to the church is sacred. Everything related to everything outside of that is secular. That's not how God ever created the world. Like everything within it was sacred to him, right? He created it. He said it was at the very end of his creation. He said it was all very good and that it was basically had God's blessing on it. And so when we talk about work, and this had to do with when he told Adam and Eve to work the ground, to take care of it, to tend it, to have dominion over it, all of that was sacred. And so when we are talking about working outside of the church, that has every bit as much importance as what we do within the church walls. And this is from the mainstream view of what the church is supposed to be, because obviously we're the ecclesia, we're the body of Christ, we're an organic growth of his kingdom. And so that alone should tell us exactly what is sacred and what is not. And so we've been taught for so long that we have to separate all these things out, and it's really done a detrimental thing to the body of Christ.
Yes. And so we got to get the body of Christ. We got to get the body of Christ to see that the work in the church is never going to be affected, because they don't mind you going in there singing and all of that. It's when you start to do the work of the church outside the four walls, is when they're going to tell you what you can and cannot do.
Exactly.
Go ahead,
and again,
Mercy.
That's why people, I have like 3 things lined up now all of a sudden based on what you guys said. I'll go in reverse order, I think. That's why it's so important to not only read your constitutions, read that original intent book that we have been shoving down your throat for months, over a year now, probably, I think, because it's that important. That book talks about the original intent behind the Constitution and all this stuff. Like, if we don't know the original context, just like looking at the Bible, if we don't know the original context and why things were done a certain way, why things were prescribed a certain way, biblically, constitutionally, and it gets ripped out of context. Last night, I didn't want to watch what was on the channel while I was working on my planner, and History Channel or Discovery or something had Legacy and Lies on, and Kelsey Grammer was one of the speakers, and it was about like George Washington and the 3/5 clause, and he butchered it, and no surprise. But it's just like they straight up lie to our faces. So
the 3/5 clause, that means that if my wife asks me a question, I can say I plead the fifth.
No. And it also doesn't mean that you're 3/5 of a person either.
Right?
I know, right?
Yep. It was literally created to help the abolishment of slavery. It was a way to phase it out.
Right. Because it was so ingrained in the culture that at the time there was no way to just say, okay, it's all done. Right. You can't you can't just suddenly give how many were there at the time? 1 million slaves? There was a huge number, and you can't just go, okay, we've had this for the last 2 centuries, but we're going to just suddenly say it's all done. And then what are you going to do? Right. Like they have to, especially in the legal sense, they have to work through in a slower process to create an environment that will be a good thing once slavery is abolished. That way these people aren't just left hanging, right? And they're just like,
literally,
what we do, right?
But I think we need to do a whole show, but not today, but we need to do a whole show on the 3/5 clause, because so many people are ignorant to the 3/5 clause, because Are y'all laughing at me?
Look at Stacey's comment.
Stacy, what? Let me
Stacey
see.
commented on that.
That's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Stacey, you win the internet today.
Stacy, go to bed. Stacy, go to bed.
That's a
Right,
high five for Stacey.
Woohoo.
right now, Stacy, go to bed. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
Oh, wait a minute. I've missed Stacey.
I know, me too.
Don't listen to Dr. King.
Yep.
Yeah,
You know
we
what?
really should talk about the 3/5 clause because there is a lot of that talk, when dealing with the Constitution. I believe, I'm almost positive there are a couple Federalist papers that were written about it as well. So we really need to address that.
I mean, and yes, because especially in the Black community, they only think that it means that they're 3/5 of a person.
No,
Right.
No,
and
it was the only way that the government at that time could protect the slaves' rights while still having to work within the slavery system. And so they were basically saying, we're going to, if you're going to treat these people like property, then we're going to treat them as in the same way in order to protect the people who don't want slavery to continue. We're not going to give you any more power than you need to have in
it was all about population
government.
and voting and how much the states got a say in voting on certain things.
And so if they
the southern states would count for voting purposes all of their slaves as part of the population, but then they wouldn't let them vote and have a say in their own life, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
So they would get more representation in government, which would be where the decisions were made, which would basically make slavery a perpetual thing for all of eternity in America. Or they would treat the slave population as a, not, I don't want to say lesser because that's not what it was, but as lesser representation within government because they had less representation in government. They weren't represented. And so they were basically curtailing the power of the southern states.
Yep. They were basically, taking it away so that they didn't perpetuate the slavery. And there was like some kind of sunset thing on it anyways. So that as it got,
they already had it in mind that they were going to eventually have abolished slavery.
And that's why so many of the founding fathers that were born, it was their, like, they words, Sarah can explain it better, but some of these forefathers, when they were born, they inherited the slaves, but like, what was it? Thomas Jefferson literally could not free his because of the way the state was written. But
he inherited them at age 11. I mean, can you imagine a little 11-year-old right now managing an estate with that many workers? And
I can imagine one of your 11-year-olds, Sarah, but
maybe, I could see that. but I mean, he did everything within the legal bounds that he possibly could, including paying his slaves, which was something unheard of back then. They didn't pay their slaves. George Washington was another one who paid his slaves for their services, and he went into debt over it. He stayed in debt. He could have completely gone the opposite way, didn't pay his slaves, didn't fight against the laws and stuff, and he could have been a very wealthy man by the end of his life, and he would have still had slaves to pass down to the next generation. Instead, he sacrificed the comfort and leisure. He spent his whole life in politics trying to fight against this, and he ended up staying in debt, remaining in debt, so he could take care of his slaves while he had them.
I think what we should do is kind of take Christian Hall's the Constitution Origins and do a series expanding on that.
Yeah.
Because those are hot topics right now.
They are.
As excuse, as reason to get rid of the Constitution altogether.
Or California's, how many trillions of dollars in reparations do they want to give? They weren't even a slave state. For the love of all that is holy, they weren't even a slave state. Oh my God.
Maybe I'll go to California and since they go along with everything, let me just walk in there and says, today I'm white and I'm a movie star and this is my house. Will they give me that house?
Apparently,
Well, if that's gonna work, then I guess what, I'm going there.
I mean, but just think of the trouble that you get into just talking about reparations. Okay, who gets reparations? There are people who are descendants of both slaves and slave owners. Okay, so is it the slave owner side that gets reparations, or is it the slave side that gets reparations, right? Or
Nope.
there's people whose family was never in slavery, and
Here's
now
the
we're going to give
thing.
them reparations because their melanin count is a little bit higher,
Mhm.
right? Like, it's just
If
ridiculous.
you go back in Chris-Anne's archives, I would say within the month prior to the episode I just shared,
Mhm.
I listened to it at like 1.5 speed, and I just kind of binge listened to them.
Mhm.
So I'm guessing it's within about a month prior to this one.
Okay.
She actually talks about something not exactly in the same ballpark, but similar enough that it makes sense to share it here. She's talking about how very early on in our country's existence, one of the states had like a really harsh winter, someone needed firewood, and they came to the federal government in search for support and assistance.
Yeah.
And someone had to say, like, we need to decline this because otherwise every year there's a hard winter. They're going to come, and that's not the purpose of the government.
Right, exactly.
And that was really interesting to hear. I didn't know that bit of history. I'm going to go back and listen to that episode. One more thing I want to touch on before we
It's
keep
what the
going.
states should be doing now. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yep, no, I agree. Like, we need to be taking that into consideration. She was touching on the fact that her connection to that point was now this was back when Trump was in office, okay? So they were basically talking about how they wanted Trump to be able to do something, but then she's bringing to light, like, if you let Trump do this, you also have to realize that means that the other side gets to do it too when they're in office. Yeah. And do you really want, and they mentioned a certain female senator whose husband had been president, or some other fictional character that's very reminiscent of a Central American, like, warlord kind of person, being in that same role as Trump, having that same power would be the end of everything. Like, so we have to be careful. Yes, it'd be nice if a good person got it, but then that also sets precedent for a bad person to have it then too. Yeah. And we can't go there.
Yeah, we're having that discussion in my depth program about, what is the extent of the role of government, right? And how can we utilize it to the good without taking advantage of it for, and having people in power to, basically abuse it. And it's really hard because government necessarily has to be pretty big in a sense, because there's, in order to defend our borders, which they're not doing right now, and in order to protect our freedoms, they have to have some level of size. They have to be sizable in order to do that. And yet at the same time, the bigger they get, the more power they take. And so this is something that it's really interesting. The founding fathers never thought of things in the idea of right and left, where like nowadays we hear communism is far left and fascism is far
it was
right.
Never meant to be that way.
No, it was never about political party. It was always about political power. What type of power are they using, and are they using it well, right? Or are they using it in tyrannically? And so that was how they gauged everything. Is the government being used to protect and defend the rights of our American citizens and defend our borders, or is it being used to restrain our freedoms? And I mean, nowadays it would be and open up our borders, right?
And did you see my post? I put a post up that says, it asked the question. It says, are illegal immigrants the new minority for both political parties?
I mean, I don't see how else it's going to be. It's going to be labeled at this point because they're
Because you know they're giving them IDs.
What was that guy? Was he a Democrat or oh gosh, or a Republican? I cannot remember. He was a black guy. I'm not saying anything about his skin color, but I caught it because of the irony of it. He was talking in a committee about how if we get rid of immigration and if we get rid of these illegal immigrants, we're going to no longer have workers in our fields and mechanics and and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you are so awful. Like,
and you know what?
Color did that one time in our.
You know what though? There's a reason, and I've witnessed this in my community. And I can understand, I'm not agreeing with it. I can understand why they said that because if you go through history in our community on the farms, all of the high school students, not all, but a lot of the high schoolers used to work on the farms as farm hands.
Yeah.
And now you look, there's a lot of people from Mexico.
Yeah.
And I'm not bashing them because they are working their butts off, trying to get the American dream.
Yeah.
And a lot of the ones in our community are making sure that they're doing things the right way.
But the question is, are they paying them the right way? You know what I mean? Are they giving them a salary that they would give somebody who's legal? You know, and if they're not, if they're paying them below, then they just as bad as China with the labor that they're using.
Yeah.
So,
but I think that was what he was trying to get at, was basically that, you know, this almost free labor that we were getting so far is going to go away. And then we're going to actually have to, pay people a good salary, right? To get them to work.
Although a lot of these high school students are so entitled.
Oh yeah, I know. And that, well, and that comes up, we can argue when that started, when they put child labor laws into and I say that in jest all child labor laws are wrong. Yeah. But when it comes to children working on their family's farm, they should be doing that, right? Like I remember one time.
It's not
exactly. It's part of family work. That's what we call it here. Is family work. When my kids do their family work, I'm putting them to work. Like they have to labor, right? Yep. They have to do things. And so the idea was originally, and I'm not questioning the intent yet of the people who started this child labor thing. They were trying to protect kids because there was a lot of stuff going on in the factories and things. This was during the Industrial Revolution. And so a lot of children were being maimed for life, were being starved, and all of this stuff. They didn't get an education. And so I understand we had to find
a compliant worker.
Right. Again, though, we were bringing in the federal government to make decisions that were not their jurisdiction. If we had done that on the local level, where where people within the communities had worked out, okay, these are our factories, right? This is our businesses and stuff, and we're going to treat our children well here, right? That would have been a far better, it might have taken longer, but it would have been a far better decision to be made than to federalize it and make it where you have to get a work permit if your 14-year-old wants to go get a job. And that's ridiculous. You should, as a parent, you should have that authority.
You juxtapose it against the, all these influencers, these children who are literally testing toys on the internet, and making money from it. Now I'm not saying, because I fully support and believe in entrepreneurial, endeavors and being creative, and with technology, you can truly do anything you want and make money doing it because someone will pay for it.
Yeah.
And
well, I got a problem because in Milwaukee, if a child wants to have a stand to sell lemonade or bottled waters just to raise some money, do you know now they got to go get a selling license?
Yep.
So that right there makes me upset, because anytime somebody think about doing something to make $1, now you're taxing them. The children can't do lemonade stands, I mean, what happened to that?
Why did they need a permit for selling lemonade? I mean, seriously,
Right.
what was the point of that except to make more money for the city
Right.
that they're going to waste?
Yep, because they wanted a piece of the pie.
Yep.
Right.
Something I'm learning, and don't ask a lot of questions because I still don't know a lot. I'm basically
I will.
I'm basically introducing the idea as I'm learning about it. Stacy, yeah, you could ask for a free will donation. You're just giving it away then. That is basically, how we're choosing to function with ministries, asking for a minimum donation. And the Lions Club that I'm a part of, what we did was we changed to a free will donation or kind of like a suggested donation. And we had people donating like $20 for like 2 hot dogs and a water.
Well,
You
I
know?
mean, it's so crazy. Last night I started a new podcast called Invest in Milwaukee, all about Milwaukee, right? So I wanted to sow 100 books into Milwaukee, but because of their so-called rules and regulations, I can't do it. Because if I do it, they're saying I'm trying to buy votes by giving out a free book. So, yeah. So it's like buying a vote if you give out a free book. So I can't even give out 100 books that I wanted to give out so people just can read. They said it's more like buying a vote. So what I got to do now is to get people to pay $1 per book just so they can give it out, so it doesn't look like I'm buying the votes.
Wow. That's yeah. Stacy, you're right. It's insane. They should not have that much control over.
And
look what Lamar says.
Yep, that's actually what I was going to touch on is about taxation and stuff. Income tax is an excise tax. It is voluntary. Voluntary.
So if I don't pay it, I can't go to jail then, right?
So here's the ticket. So, and I took some notes on this call, and like I said, I know very little. So section 6203 of the tax code is so that you can request an assessment of the IRS to get a certified copy of what you have or what they have that I owe. So if they try to send you a letter saying, oh, you haven't paid your taxes, we think you owe this, you basically section 6203 them, and I believe this would be in the form of an affidavit, and send it as a registered letter. I could be wrong on that part, but you do want to send it as an affidavit for sure, notarized and all that good stuff. And basically they will never do it because they will not go under oath stating what they believe you owe, because they can't do it, because
even though it's an amendment to the Constitution.
And it's because of the way it's written. Technically, even though it's an amendment, like the way they've done taxes, alcohol tax, yes, is taxable. It's a mandatory tax. Income tax as an excise tax is voluntary. And so you can force them to try to tell you, thank you, Stacy, what they believe you owe. And they will never give you a certified copy because that's only one piece of the puzzle, that they can't ever have the whole picture, because what you receive is not necessarily all considered income. There's this whole other rabbit trail that I haven't gone down yet. I'm going to at some point. That private individuals, even as W-2 earners, we do not fit the definition of a taxpayer in terms of the federal government.
Okay.
That would be corporations and, things like that. Those are actually who, anything that's a creature of the state, and even not all LLCs, fit that definition.
Because it was always supposed to be indirect taxation of the people. It was never supposed to be direct taxation.
Yes. Yep. And so that's where the income tax is not proper. And
so then how does that work? Because they still take out taxes from your income every year. How does that work then?
So there are ways, and that's what I'm learning. I have not gone. We had one call last
Okay.
week, so I'm sharing it like as I'm learning it.
Yeah.
But
'Cause
yes,
I'm definitely
there are
interested
ways
in
to
this.
basically
I know, I am
get
too.
your money back.
Okay.
So can I get my money back for all the money they took out?
Part of it is how you deposit your money. And so when you deposit your money or when you receive money, you want to be redeeming it in lawful money. So if you look at our dollar bill, there's two seals on it. One is for the Treasury, and one is for the can't think of the Federal Reserve. So our dollars actually serve dual purposes.
But
It's
there is no Federal Reserve.
that's a whole nother rabbit trail.
So
So-
here's a $2 bill. Is it on? It's on there.
Yep, both of them are on there. So the one with
Okay.
the L and then the green one.
Okay.
Yep. So that means that our money is elastic. It serves two purposes. But unless you when you receive it, basically declare through the bank, like this is obviously like if you're getting a check or some other, online deposits, things like that. You want to make sure that the bank is aware that you are redeeming any deposits that come into these accounts as lawful money. Lawful, and let me see if I can find the right verbiage. So basically, when you're doing that, our income tax, our taxes are on the use of that private currency. If we are using lawful money, they cannot tax it.
Okay.
And so when we redeem it as lawful money, they cannot tax that. So that's how even W-2 earners can go without having to pay those taxes.
Interesting.
How to actually implement it, that I too will be
You're
learning.
still learning. Yeah.
Yes, I have connections, so and I can point people to that if they need it. But
Definitely interested in that.
very
Yeah,
cool
because I
stuff.
mean, we do get stuff back at the end of the year usually, although we've tried to get it as close to zero as possible. So we're actually keeping more of our money throughout the year.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's one of those things where why are we giving our personal income to the government when I don't care what the 16th Amendment says. It was never constitutional to
To
and
start, right.
there's even questions about the 16th Amendment being passed lawfully. There's questionable stuff
Mhm.
around that. So yeah, so this is one of those things that I'm definitely I've seen stuff about it, but it's it's because it's so normal for us to have to file taxes and do all of this stuff. It's hard to think outside of that box and think, oh my gosh, the IRS is going to come after me and now they have guns, right?
Right. And by the way, Lamar, he said he only ever met one guy who did not pay taxes and nothing happened to him. He didn't know how he does it. I know quite a few people now. I haven't dug into the nitty-gritty and the finer details. Part of it was until I knew enough, I knew that I could never go down some of those paths.
Yeah, for sure.
And there are enough things that I
Well,
can
I'm hard-headed. I want to go down there.
Right. And now that I have connections with people who are actually teaching how to do this now I'm starting to feel confident in even talking about it.
Cool. Cool.
When I first started doing PMAs, I would never even talk about how if you're choosing to receive income from your ministry, that you may choose to claim that income, because I could not explain it well enough or understand it myself well enough. So it's one of those things that as we grow, we then turn around and share that information. So it's pretty exciting stuff. Stacy, I am not sure.
And
one of those questions we're going to be looking into.
Right. And this is something that, when we look at it, we have to continue to empower people with the information, with the knowledge, showing them how to do it. Because if we don't, then they're going to always be governed incorrectly. And
Yep.
so, and we definitely got to back government up. We got to tell the government to go sit down somewhere. You know how they tell us when our children act up, just put them on a timeout, put them in the corner on a timeout. I think it's time we tell the government timeout. Go stand in the corner. You know,
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think, and that was what I was saying earlier about the states have way more power over the federal government than they give themselves credit for. Being on the board has been eye-opening because I talked to one of the chairperson or the chairperson for the Department of Health and Human Services, and he was asking me, how do you like being on the Department of Health and Human Services? And I was like, well, that's a mixed bag for me because it's very interesting and educational about how public health works and stuff. I said, but given that Department of Health and Human Services was not constitutional for our federal government, I don't agree with most of what we're doing. I think that should have been left to local communities. And he goes, yeah, you're right. And then just left it at that. So there's just like, people know that this is not right, but it's been so ingrained in us that we just, okay, but there's nothing we can do about it, right? And it's so not true. It is so not true. I mean, they just asked for more money for more programs that are exactly like the other programs, except for from a different department. And so therefore, it's all overlapping, and it's not actually doing. They keep talking about, oh yeah, this is going to help. It's going to help our community. No, it's taking money out of our pockets that we could be using for ourselves. These people that are in poverty don't have to be in poverty if they are not having to give half their money to the government, right?
And you know what? Where I'm at right now with KrisAnne Hall is touching on this kind of stuff too. And she talked about healthcare. We are not entitled to that. That is not one of our God-given natural rights. And it's actually really selfish of us to assume that, because if you want what your neighbor has, health insurance or health coverage, that's actually going against biblical standards too. Yeah. And even those who aren't, faith-based, it's a form of jealousy, regardless. Do you really want to be putting that energy out there of lacking? Like, if you believe in the law of attraction, do you really want the energy of lacking and not enough and not having? Because you're going to get more of what you put out.
Well, and what I want to know is, have insurance companies and all of these publicly funded health organizations, have they done us any good? Because right now America is the least healthy it has ever been in the history of America.
We pay the most for healthcare and get the least results out of it.
Yes, smallpox epidemics and the mortality. We're what is it, 23rd in the nations for mortality, maternal mortality. 23rd, guys. 23rd.
Isn't medical malpractice the third leading cause of death?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, it's like there's some mess up in the system, y'all.
Well, you guys, we know that the medical field is malarkey anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Especially when a person like what's his name? Oh God.
Fauci?
Dr. CB. CB, what's his name? He's a master herbalist. And he ended up going to, I think it was in Mexico when he got killed in prison. Dr. CB, that's his name. Dr. CB.
The man who cures AIDS, cancer, diabetes, and more.
Yes. He was teaching how to heal your body with natural herbs and everything. And what was funny was this. I found out that every medical college used to teach master herbalist stuff. Natural healing.
Certain family
until a certain
and the
family.
C family. Don't forget the C family. They were part of it too.
Yes. And they went in and they started putting people on the board, and they started giving. See, when people want to give you money, hello,
You need to ask what are the strings attached, right?
Exactly.
Because I'm sorry,
Bingo.
there is a difference, and this is what bothers me so much about all of these people who are called philanthropists. And they have Bill Gates being called a philanthropist. He is not a philanthropist. He does not have
He's
the
a
good
donor.
of the humankind on his mind. That is not why he gets his money, gives his money,
He's
because
really
he
an
gets
investor, is what he
exactly.
is.
He's an investor in programs that are killing human beings, right? He is not a philanthropist. And that's what bothers me about all of these people who are these multimillionaires who are like, oh, I've got this philanthropic society and I've got these trusts and all of these things. No, you are not a philanthropist. A philanthropist is someone who loves humankind and wants to do what is best for them.
I mean, how more obvious can he get? If you actually watch what he says from his mouth and you actually look at the things he's posted,
Yes.
there's a picture from a few years ago. Gosh, I don't even know how many years ago now, where he's like basically sitting at a desk showing the books that he's reading. And there's
Yeah.
one that's about like basically killing off the people or something
Yeah.
about statistics. And like,
Yes.
I'm just like, holy crap, are they
Mhm.
so incredibly obvious?
Yeah.
And yet we're turning a blind eye, and it's
Yep.
You know,
because
there
we're
was a-
getting our information secondhand, and
Yes.
it's being force fed to us.
right.
Because we're not studying for ourselves, we're not learning for ourselves. And I'm not saying
It-
everybody has to be a Michelangelo when it comes, or a Leonardo da Vinci when it comes to having knowledge and experience in things, but we definitely need to know at least the foundational principles. What are the foundational principles that this world runs on? And the only way you can find that is through God. Like,
Right.
there's
And
no
you
other
got to
way
be
to find the
open too,
foundational
though. You got to be open to receive knowledge
Yes.
too.
But if we knew just the foundational principles, we could evaluate everything on that and
Mhm.
say,
Yeah.
does this match? Does making genetically modified mosquitoes, does this match up with the principles of God? No, it doesn't. He gave us
Or just the principles of nature.
right,
A
exactly.
lot of this stuff, you guys, that
Nature's
we're talking
laws.
about, even if we took God out of it and just
Yeah.
looked at nature
Natural
and
law.
natural
Well-
law.
Well,
we
let's
could
look
still
at this for a
refute it.
second.
Yeah.
Let's look at this for a second. You have seedless grape, seedless orange, and you have orange with seeds and grapes with seeds.
Although I do like the seedless ones.
I do too.
Okay, but why you liking it? Watch this though.
Yeah.
The seedless,
I know.
seedless is man-made.
Yep.
The
Yep.
ones with the seeds are God-made.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the
I
only
know.
reason-
It
the
was
only
all of
reason-
the plants and trees, everything was seed bearing, right? Everything
Right.
that produced its own kind. Yes.
Right.
So now we're creating food that does not produce its own kind, but has been created by man, and it is always going to be less than what God created, right? It's
Right.
always
Yep.
going to be.
And the only reason you like the seedless so you can just swallow it. That's all.
Well, and here's the thing. So I read a book by, what is his name? G. Edward Griffith. He worked very closely. He did interviews in the 70s and 80s with the Russian defectors, talking about what Russia's plan was for America, basically infiltration and destruction, right? But it was from the inside. We would destroy ourselves. Anyway, he also did a lot of studies on health and human illnesses and stuff, and the medical community and what damage it has done. He wrote a book called World Without Cancer. And one of the things that he said was they did studies on these tribes that were eating even the apricot seed itself,
Yes,
right?
apricot seeds. I'm
Yes.
so glad you brought it up.
Yes. And this apricot, nobody in the tribe was dying of cancer. Nobody in the tribe was dying of any of the normal aging things that we're told are normal, right? Diabetes and all of these things. None of them had any of these problems. And
Most
they ate all
indigenous
of the food.
tribes, most
Yep.
indigenous tribes who have not been touched by
Yep.
the modern world do not have any of the health issues we have.
Yep.
They have zero autism, zero ADHD,
Yep.
zero cancer,
Allergies.
including skin cancer,
Yep.
no heart issues.
Yep.
You can go through all of them, and they
Yep.
don't have any of them. And
Yep.
they live
And
to
then the
ripe old
moment-
ages.
The moment we bring our first world food and diet into their world and our medicines, you immediately see a decline in health. You immediately see cancers
Yep.
rising. You immediately see diabetes and all of these things.
All the things.
I mean, think about it. Think about the Native American population in America. What are they're living on subsidies from the American government. And what happened before that? They were living off the land, and they were healthy. And
there
we
are
came in and
actually
we said,
some
"Nope."
I want to connect with. There's people in our local tribe that still actually know some of the plants,
Mhm.
native plants that you can use for healing. And I
Yep.
actually want to talk to them and see if they're willing to share that, so that that information can live on.
Yeah.
Because I get generations don't always appreciate the same
All-
things.
Yeah.
If you go on YouTube, and I think he's on Instagram, his name is Yaki.
Okay.
He's a student of Dr. CB, and he talks about it. They have healed cancer and AIDS and
Yeah.
and just with natural stuff. And so,
Yeah.
there's still some people out here. My doctor is a holistic doctor,
Yes.
and I went to this one chiropractor, and he said he became that because the way your bones was shifted in your spine, that he watched his mother die off of medication.
Mhm.
And so he wanted to do something to help people. And
Yeah.
and the thing about it is we don't pay attention to nothing.
No.
We
Well,
allow
and-
them to give us medication that you
Yeah.
got to take for years, but you never get healed.
Yeah. And look at the mindset of the mainstream medical, right? Everything has to have a protocol, everything has to be uniform. We have to make sure the FDA approves it and all of these things.
Patented and
Right.
not
And
of nature anymore.
And here's the thing. Here's a constitutional violation. The government was never supposed to have patents on anything. Like that wasn't and they have patents on drugs and all sorts of things that are killing the American people. The patents were for individuals who had invented things that were worthy of being recognized and protected, right? That was for individual protection. It was, again, going back to our individual rights. So I could get into a whole argument about that thing, but the concept of it is the mainstream medical bases all of their decisions on consensus. And that makes the rest of the world look like quacks. The problem is we're not the quacks when we are dealing with God-given natural healing. There's even healing things listed in the scriptures, right? Honey.
Oh yeah.
The natural not vegetable oils, but like olive oils and things like that. And essential oils of different kinds, hyssop and all of these things.
Healing oils of the Bible.
I love that book. But yeah,
and he's a minister and a PhD, so
yes,
and he knows both sides.
So because the world has come to this idea that science has to have consensus in order to be correct, we know we on the fringes, when this was how the world did medicine for centuries, right? And yes, there are quacks in the natural healing world. There are people who literally poison other people. Yeah. Whether it's intentional or not. They don't. But it's because they're not. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when word gets out that someone's not, doing something correctly or appropriately, they will lose their reputation.
Yes.
Just like drug,
And that brings us to free market, right? They have the right to have the right to sell things, and people have the right to buy things. But
you do not have a right to protection from bad products.
Right, exactly.
That's not a right.
Because you take that risk the moment you agree to purchase it, right? Or to use it. And that's the thing. That is where the individual freedoms come in with responsibility. We have responsibility. Yeah. If we want healing, we have the responsibility to understand how the healing works and to understand what will heal us the best, right? That's our job. And what the mainstream medical field has done is they have taken our responsibility from us and said, nope, we know what's best for you. You consult with your doctor and your doctor will tell you what's best for you. And then you just do whatever your doctor says. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who goes into medical practice wants to harm people. That's not... Most people who go into medical practice, they want to help people. The problem is they're taking a Western medicine and saying, this is the only way it is because look, we've got peer-reviewed studies, we have consensus, therefore we must follow this protocol. Look at who saved their patients during the last 3 years were the ones who went against protocol and said, nope, there is something wrong with that. We have to try something else. And they let their patients know, hey, this has risks. But so does following what the mainstream medical is telling you as well. So you have to weigh those risks and make those decisions. We will help you make the right decision, but we are not going to tell you what to do. Those were the people who saved their patients. Those were the people who gave us a second chance at life and a second chance at health. in the midst of a massive pandemic. That's the people we should have been listening to.
And you know what?
the
People
entire
don't
time.
understand. Like Dr. Rashid Buttar just died.
Yep.
What people don't seem to grasp is those speaking out against the mainstream medical, anything. They have nothing to gain and everything to lose. Literally, even their lives, because they are being poisoned and blackmailed and getting unalived.
Yes.
Not voluntarily.
Yes.
Like, there are hundreds of doctors who have been unalived, and it's a mystery.
We have no idea why all of these naturopathic doctors are dying of nothing.
And I can't stand you right now, Amber. So I just want you to know that. Hold that book up again.
Healing Oils of the Bible by David Stewart.
Okay, I got to go buy that book now. That's why I can't stand you. I just want you to know I can't stand you too, because y'all always throwing up a book.
While we're talking about it, and this is where empowerment comes in, and this is why I'm sharing it. So, Dr. King, plug your ears, cover your eyes just for a second. He has another book. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
The Chemistry of Essential Oils Made Simple. Now, yes, this is much more like a textbook than any of the books that I have typically. Yeah. But when you see all the flags, like when you realize I can look at lemon oil and go look at what's in it to see why it helps with a certain thing, that's where power comes in, because knowing is believing, and believing is where the power comes in. Because even if it's placebo effect, that just shows how powerful our bodies are to heal themselves. So that's why I love this stuff, because
fine, I'm gonna go buy the books.
I think I rented that one. I'd gotten it from the library, the healing oils, and it's on my list of ones that I'm planning on purchasing in the next little bit, because Bella is really getting into essential oils and healing and herbs and stuff like that. So it's like one of those things. She decided on her own to take a chemistry course from Hillsdale College online. Yeah. I did not tell her to, but she chose to, right? And this is what I'm trying to encourage my kids to do. This is what we need to be encouraged our families to do, encouraging everybody. Where do you get your information from? Are you certain that is the right information? Right. And here's some options. You want to have a good, like, I don't just stop reading information from the other side just because I don't agree with them. I read it and then compare and contrast, right? It's just like, I read the Bible and I compare and contrast it, and I say, okay, this lines up with what I'm learning, and this does not, right? That's how you do things. That's how you're using logic and reason in order to look at what is in the world, and does it match up with what I see, what I observe? That's science. That is science. That is the absolute love of learning and love of discovery. And you're not just taking somebody else's word for it. I know we've talked about this, but on the High Wire, when
Del had Neil.
His whole thing was, I believe in consensus. Okay. Consensus is going to kill you, because the consensus believed that you shouldn't wash your hands before going from a corpse to delivering a baby. Consensus believed that you should bleed your patients dry when they had a fever, right? Like, consensus believed a lot of things over the years, and consensus was wrong. And it was the quacks who came out and turned out to be right, because they were following something higher than themselves. They weren't just going, oh, it's been, everybody says it, so I'm gonna, run over the cliff and die with them. No, they think about these scientists who they didn't just study science and study their field of discovery. They studied the scriptures. They studied the natural law, the natural world. They looked at what was around them and they said, this lines up, this does not, right?
Yep.
So when they saw people being bled out of for fevers, they're like, wait a minute, but blood is necessary. they kind of need this because there's something in the blood. We can't see it yet, but there is something in the blood that people who have it are a lot healthier than people who don't, right? So, I mean, these were common sense things, and I think we've taken the common sense out of science, and that really is what it comes down to.
Primarily, I noticed, and I don't know when it started, but it was super heavy in the 50s and 60s,
Mhm.
is this whole listen to your doctor. We
Mhm.
have gotten rid of culturally healers and shamans and
Yeah.
all these healing people. Like, and I'm not
Yeah.
even talking, again, across cultures.
Yeah.
We have literally squashed the people who were there to help us learn how to
Yeah.
heal our bodies. By the way,
Right.
Sarah, anything by Kurt Schnabel for your daughter. He
Yeah.
is basically like the modern day father of aromatherapy.
Yeah. Send me
very-
that name so I can look him up.
So
Yeah.
so we was taught to listen to the doctor and not our bodies.
Yep.
Yep.
Because
And
your body
that
talks to you.
Up until that
Okay.
point, think about it. When did people go to the doctor? When they could not handle their health themselves. So, like emergencies, right? They broke a
if your
bone.
bone is sticking out of your body.
Right. That was something a little bit outside of their control. So they went up to the next jurisdiction, right? But this is where we get so turned around with the hierarchies of government, right? And I'm considering medicine a part of government in this sense, because it is another jurisdiction that is supposed to take care of things that we cannot take care of ourselves. I can take care of a common cold. Heck, I can take care of a 104-degree fever in my kid. I can manage the symptoms, and I can look and make sure that they are staying hydrated and that I'm cooling them
Especially
down.
in the era of the internet. And
Exactly.
this is one of my biggest pet peeves when people talk bad about those who are taking their health into their own hands.
Right.
Oh, you have a Google degree? You know what? That Google degree tells me every single thing about inside and outside and all the factors about my particular health thing that no doctor I've ever met knows. My cousin.
And here's the thing.
But
you can spend an hour with your Google degree and find way more information than the 5 minutes that your doctor gives you, because he's got to get to the next patient.
But here's the funny part about it. With your Google degree, I like that one. I'm gonna try to use that. But with your Google degree, you can find out what you have. You can go to natural herbs remedies and go in the yard, get some dandelions, boil it, and now you heal instead of paying hundreds of dollars on medication where you would never be healed.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
And whoever thought dandelions would be,
Oh my gosh. My daughter gets mad when Jacob mows the lawn. She's like, "You took my dandelions."
Has she tried batter frying the flowers?
No, that sounds
I just
good.
saw a recipe for that to make it so they don't end up like bitter.
Interesting.
Yeah, I sent it to my mom, I think, so I'll send it over. But
good.
I've been basically my entire Facebook reels now are homesteaders, herbalists, people foraging, people who are like preppers, and there's funny animal videos because I like them. But there's none of the nonsense. There's none of the weird dancing and the propagandish stuff.
Because there is a difference. There were witch doctors who thought that chanting over their patient with beads and things was going to heal them. No, but there were other witch doctors, if we want to call them that, or shamans, or whatever you want to call them, who used the natural world in order to heal their patients. I was just, what was I reading about? Oh, no. I think it was, did you share this with me, Amber, about the lady from Australia? What was her name? Yes. And we tried, so we've been dealing with this never-ending cough since COVID. It's like it doesn't happen all the time, but it's just like this catch in your throat, and it just won't go away, right? And we tried onion syrup, and it's been helping. It's been so it's it's not my favorite flavor in the world, but hey, I don't think medicine was supposed to taste good, right? Like willow bark tea was bitter, and yet it helped your headaches, right? But I think this is the other thing that we need to take into consideration. We live in a world that is fast. We want fast everything, and we want fast healing. So we will take a drug that will give us fast healing, right? I did this for some of my migraines that I couldn't control. I went into the emergency room and I took this drug, and then I was sick for 3 days. not because of the migraine remnants,
the
but because
medication.
of the medication itself, right?
Right.
But my headache was gone, right?
You
And
want to
so
know
this is-
what science has proven, and I need to find the study again. When you ingest by tasting, chewing, swallowing, supplements, anything, your body registers it and actually processes it faster and more efficiently to get it where it needs to go than if you just pop a pill. Something about your taste buds and the nerves in your mouth actually trigger your brain, be like, oh, I know what that is. I know where it needs to go now.
Yeah.
And
so instead of taking drugs for headaches, chew on peppermint leaves. Because mint has been known to have an analgesic effect on headaches. And does it go away as fast as if you're taking the drug intravenously? No, not necessarily. But I can tell you it is a lot healthier for your body. And your body's going. And the other thing is because our bodies are not used to it, it probably has a slower effect. Once our bodies get used to that and we're not used to the quickness of the drugs in the medical field, right? Once our bodies get used to that natural healing, like you said, it starts responding.
That's why homeopathy is so amazing, because you can take basically an essence of something.
Yes.
The thing isn't really there anymore. It's like literally just, it's like, what is it? What's the soda that no one likes but LaCroix or something? Where it's like you pass the strawberry past the drink and there's your strawberry flavored seltzer.
Yeah.
But like that's kind of like how homeopathy works. It's like the thing isn't really there anymore, and yet your body recognizes it and can actually use it. And that's what I think is just so. We're just not giving our bodies credit.
Well, all I know is this. I went to the hospital. I was in pain. They didn't really know what it was, so they gave me some medicine for the pain. And they say, take this. And I says, so what would this do to my body? What's the side effect? Oh, it might hurt your liver. It might hurt your kidney. I'm like, you keep this. I'm not taking that. Yeah. And then they say, oh, we need to do an MRI, but we need to shoot your body with dye. I'm like, oh, I'm not taking an MRI because you're not putting dye in me at the same time. So and Rosie would tell you this, I will literally deal with the pain before I take any kind of medication that's going to damage another part of my body.
Yeah.
Good.
And then I pray and lay hands on myself.
And you know what? I was just going to add, like, if we go back to nature was designed to be synergistic, even if it's a fraction of a percent of a constituent in it. So like wintergreen is 99% methylsalicylate, aspirin, what aspirin's made of. And then that other 1 to 2% of stuff is other things that make it synergistic so that your body uses what it needs without going too much to the other extreme.
Yeah.
Aspirin does not have those other constituents, so you can't get too much of it.
Yes.
And that's the other thing too, is that your body only uses what it needs because of that synergistic effect of the other constituents. You cannot replicate that in a lab.
Right. And that's actually an interesting thing, because there are a lot of articles out there that say if you're pregnant, you should be avoiding wintergreen because of the aspirin. But it's not aspirin the way we consider aspirin, right?
But then they tell you to take a baby aspirin if you're blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, I think I'll go with my wintergreen.
No, this is the worst of it. They tell you to take Tylenol instead. Tylenol's toxic. It's like, I mean, multiple criminal penalties against the makers of Tylenol, and yet we're supposed to take that in pregnancy over a naturally made aspirin. Like, it does not make sense to me. And I think one of it is because of the blood thinning properties, but there was some other stuff, and I'm thinking, but
again, you're talking about it doesn't have the other components that help balance it out.
You're right. And so these medical people who are researching this, they're researching it based on what they know of aspirin in the mainstream, as opposed to the natural healing process. I mean, how many women for centuries in pregnancy took willow bark tea? I mean, that's aspirin, for headaches and for pains. Like, and
that's what I pretty much never, unless I'm working with someone who is liberty loving, and I know it,
Mhm.
in private practice, or if they are a PMA doctor or health related practitioner,
Mhm.
I will pretty much never recommend someone go to see their doctor anymore because they
Yeah.
don't know squat.
Oh
Because
yeah,
of all these, I should lean the other way. Because of all these books I have behind
Yeah.
me, I mean, I've studied essential oils, for instance, for
Yeah.
a decade this year. I
Yeah.
know more about any essential oil than your doctor does.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to toot my own horn. I don't have letters behind my name, and I don't need them because I studied it for my own health, and you can
Right.
too.
Right.
Like,
And
it's
you
accessible.
are probably getting way more hours of study than any medical doctor because I mean, think about the medical education. They get
Mhm,
general overviews of every aspect of medicine, generally. If
mhm.
they specialize, they get a general overview of that specialization. They don't actually go into specialization until they're on the floor learning it as they go, right? So I'm not saying that people shouldn't be doctors. I'm saying you should be very careful with the education you get and in assuming that you've gotten a better education than people who are doing thousands of hours of study for themselves. And they're comparing and contrasting multiple ideas and viewpoints. In medical school nowadays, you get one viewpoint pretty much, and that's here's
Right.
consensus, right?
And
And that doesn't tell me you have a good education as a doctor. It doesn't tell me I should trust you as my medical
Yep.
practitioner. So yeah,
so we went from Constitution to medical to pumpkin pie and swimming.
I'll
and
circle it
and I'm making my
around.
blanket in the process.
Something I was going to recommend since we're talking about basically this indoctrination that we've been given. If you're looking for an alternative to Netflix and Disney Plus, PureFlix is a really awesome
Mhm.
place. Right now, they
AngelVid. AngelVid is another really good one.
yep,
Wait a minute. Is what it's called what?
PureFlix.
PureFlix. And one of the
PureFlix.
ones that I just started watching on there is the Homeschool Awakening.
And
Mhm.
how much you got to pay for that?
It's like it's $7.99 a month. So I think it's even cheaper than Netflix now.
See, that's how you women is. Y'all always put something up that you got to pay.
And
But
AngelVid is crowdsourced, so a lot of their stuff is free.
Nice.
Not all of it, but a lot of it
Yeah.
is free.
In particular, if you are a parent or a grandparent or a friend of a loved one
Mhm.
that has kids, please share this with them so that they can just share this little snippet.
Is that the one with Kirk Cameron?
Yes.
Yes.
Kirk Cameron is basically, it's like a documentary sort of thing on homeschooling. And it was
Mhm.
particularly since, 2020. And it's addressing how there's this flock of people coming out of the public system because they can't, home-based educate their kid in the school system.
Right.
The way the school system is set up, and
Right.
basically it goes through these parents' journeys from I can't do this, I'm not a teacher, to seeing their kids thriving in unimaginable ways, and
Yeah.
just getting back to truly logical thinking.
So you mean to tell me none of this?
Oh God. No, God, no, please turn it off. Please.
What is that?
Coco Melon, it's like kids programming instead of like Sesame Street before they went woke, and nursery rhymes. Coco Melon is basically only
Wait.
entertainment for
Hold
kids.
on, Albert. Hold on. Sarah, you don't know this?
I feel like my IQ points just dropped about 50. My kids watch PragerU and Tuttle Twins.
Well, I mean, this is intended for like toddlers, up to through toddler age, but still, it's basically killing your brain cells.
Yeah.
Keeping kids dumb. And the one frustrates me, like, basically asking the kid what he's doing or what he's eating or what's in his mouth. and nothing, Papa. And it ends up he's eating a cookie when he's not supposed to be. He's like, it's literally teaching kids a lie, and then it's funny.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Looney
thank
Tunes
you.
was one thing because it was obvious that it was like, you can't fall off a cliff or get, have
Right.
an Acme anvil dropped on your head and survive. Like, you
Right,
knew this was bogus.
Yeah.
Really? But they didn't tell us when we was coming up Superman was bogus. We tried to tie a towel around us and jump off garage.
I bet you learned about gravity real fast.
Hey, we learned that one very fast.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just like how swing sets, kids are only going to walk in front of someone swinging on the swing once.
I think every one of my
or
kids did
behind
that.
the swing.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. No, I think honestly,
It's
I
dumbing
think
down
most
of
of the
America.
programming for toddlers and stuff is completely useless because it's like you said, it's dumbing things down. My toddlers just did things with us. Like when I was reading Little House on the Prairie, my toddler was sitting there playing with blocks. And it wasn't like he was fully paying attention, but he was a part of it, right? I didn't have to set him in another room to watch.
So what about
Cocomelon.
what about this? What about this?
Baby shark. Just kidding.
Oh God. Now it's in my head. Just that. Oh my gosh. I hate
Okay, my turn. Knock, knock.
There.
Orange.
Orange who?
Orange, you glad to be heading home?
Ocean.
Do y'all know what that was?
Nope.
Come on.
No, I don't. I don't.
Here you go.
We don't watch a whole lot of TV. Like
I know, but watch this.
VeggieTales.
Yes.
Yeah.
I knew you had to know that one.
Yeah, because
Right.
I grew up on VeggieTales, but then I was like, when I watched it after I started having kids, I'm like, yeah, no.
I mean, at least content-wise, it's a lot better.
Yeah, content-wise, well, okay. So this is what made me stop going anywhere close to it. The Barbara Manatee song. That is a horrible song.
I'll have to look it up. I never really grew up on VeggieTales. I think I've seen like.
Hold it. Wait a minute. You don't know VeggieTales?
It's
I
disturbing.
know it, but I never really watched it.
That one was the one that it was just like, I mean, you get into the hairbrush song and that was a little bit weird, but like Barbara Manatee.
Where's my hairbrush? Sorry.
Barbara
I know
Manatee
that one.
me. So yeah, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So, my kids, like I said, my 5-year-old can tell you what inflation is. And maybe I know I've had my oldest daughter, she talks about how, sometimes she feels like she has to kind of dumb herself down around some of her peers. And I'm like, it makes me sad that she feels that way because it's like, I wish more kids, and unfortunately she's got, with her online high school program, she's got a lot of people who are learning the same things. And so she's able to have some really great discourse with them. She on her own decided to start a book club.
Okay, Stacy, here you go.
So these.
You'll have some fun now with me and all the gang, learning from each other while we do our thing. Gonna have a good time.
Copyright problem here.
Stacy wanted to hear the Fat
I
Albert
know.
song.
Liberty's Kids was okay. I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah, VeggieTales. I'm not going to say that I didn't enjoy it as a kid because we didn't get to watch much. So it was like anything we could watch. I was like, okay. but yeah, when
It did go with the Bible though to the kids though.
It did. Yeah. And so as far content wise, for the most part, I don't have a problem with, except the Barbara Manatee song. But it was, I don't know, but it was just like, I don't know. I'm very, very old fashioned about things like that. We don't watch a whole lot of TV. And when we do, we watch it all together. And so there's just, I usually tend to find things that are maybe too old for my youngest, but they
need a challenge.
Yes.
To grow, we need to be challenged.
Exactly.
I know and I love and appreciate them for doing things that are relevant. But one that I never really got into was the St. Patrick's Day one. Partly because we don't as far as I know, my denomination that I'm affiliated with did not recognize saints.
Yeah.
And so to celebrate St. Patrick's Day as a religious holiday, I found quite contradictory. And not to say that he wasn't a good dude, not to say, but again, that's getting into one of those things where we're, honoring someone other than God, other than Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, should we be? At least to this extent.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean,
and like that's I'd never,
at least to this extent.
Yeah, and I've never really celebrated St. Patrick's Day for St. Patrick himself. It's mostly because I've got Irish roots, and so I like the food.
Bluetooth disconnected.
So we read green, or we all wear green, and we enjoy an Irish meal.
Right.
But
right, to enjoy a fun holiday is different than like honoring a saint that isn't really biblical. Right. Yeah, well, I wear green too, and I'm Irish too. So
do you know who St. Patrick was?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
Because a lot of people don't know who he really was.
Oh yeah, he did some pretty amazing things.
And not like just getting rid of the snakes in Ireland, like we're taught, like
or the beer turning green and all that other.
Yeah.
Wait, you mean he didn't turn the beer into green beer?
No.
But there are many. What is it? We are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. I treat the saints in that sense, right? That I've got people who have gone before me who have spread God's kingdom, and I honor them for that, and I look to them as an example so that I can teach my kids the same way moving forward, right? It's not. Yeah, we don't celebrate them as saints because they've done something that got them.
They don't have some powers that can. Yeah, they're not like the angels and God.
Right.
It's like
we celebrate them for honoring God and increasing His kingdom, and that's really where it comes down to it.
And we got a lot of people. We do those kind of things and don't realize what we're really doing. Because you grew up with that.
Yeah.
We grew up knowing Halloween was not a bad thing. Because they taught us it was about candy. And so we didn't see nothing wrong with it until you mature and you find out the meaning of what certain things was. Just like right now, you got this big argument about abortion, right? Big argument about abortion. But nobody can answer my question. And the question is, if a woman has an abortion, she's just getting rid of a fetus. But if a person kill a woman that's pregnant, it's double homicide.
Mm-hmm.
And the same person that would charge him for double homicide is the same person that says it's just a fetus.
Yeah. Fetus just means offspring. So
right.
And every species has their own offspring
fetus.
After their kind. So if it's an offspring of a human being, it must therefore be a human being.
Exactly. So when you start to look at certain things, we thought Easter was a good thing. Candy, chocolate, bunnies. Until you mature, right? Jelly beans, but you was never taught the real meaning.
Cadbury eggs.
Oh, yum.
So until we start to educate people on the truth, this is what, like we talked about the 3/5 clause, right? This is the real meaning of the 3/5 clause. So they will have understanding. The Constitution, the Fourth Amendment. This is what the Fourth Amendment really means. This is what the Fifth Amendment really means. I was with a gentleman and he said, yeah, I got charged for burning a flag. I said, yeah, I saw you on Facebook when you burnt the flag, talking about you exercising your First Amendment. First Amendment doesn't give you the right to burn a flag.
No.
I said, so until you learn your amendments, you're going to always get arrested. Come on, First Amendment don't give you the right to burn a building down or to bust out the window and go take the food and all. That's not exercising the First Amendment. And so until we educate people on that, until we educate people that we are a constitutional republic instead of democracy, right? So
And what
I mean,
the difference is.
Yeah.
yes. So we
Exactly.
have to really break those kind of things down so people will understand, oh man, we've been hoodwinked because this democracy that we say we living in is going to turn into communism or socialism.
Mm-hmm.
So do you really understand what you under? And a lot of people does not know.
Yeah.
So, you know, we went from medical, constitutional, Halloween-o,
VeggieTales.
VeggieTales and Cocomellos and all this stuff, you know, but it's really about educating people and say,
Yeah.
okay, what is the real
Yeah.
issue? What's
Well, and there
behind?
are lots of rabbit holes to go down.
But I mean, isn't that the whole concept of intellectual discourse? You don't just discuss one topic and expect it to stay on that particular topic unless you're in a very specific type of debate, right? But when we're having intellectual discourse with people, we're discussing all sorts of subjects, but they are, if you look at everything that we discussed, it is all related. It really is. And if you can see the foundation, because we're talking foundational principles,
Yeah.
where this intellectual discourse comes in. We're talking foundational principles, meaning we are going back to the basics. That's where my quote is going to be from. and this is why this type of conversation is so good to have, because we're not all agreeing on every single thing we talk about. I have a different view of Halloween, but that doesn't mean that we can't have discussion and bring it back to those foundational principles and say, okay, where are we getting our beliefs from? Where are we getting our convictions from? Are there things that are just opinions, and are there things that have a basis in fact, right? And we're basically pulling those things out. Some people like VeggieTales and some people don't. That would be opinion based, right? We're not basing it on, like, I'm not basing that on foundational principles. However,
And you never told anyone that they shouldn't watch it either. You're
Exactly.
simply sharing your opinion.
Well, let me do it this way. Watch VeggieTale or go to hell.
oh, I could talk to you about hell. Ooh.
But you know, you're right. We're not telling nobody what they should do. We're just telling the people, go get the information. Do your homework.
Actually, I will tell people they should read their Constitution. I
Yeah,
will do that.
Yeah.
But
I
see,
mean,
that is based on fact. I mean, we've got founding fathers who've told us you need to know your Constitution or you're going to lose your freedom. So I think that's different than an opinion on VeggieTales. If we don't read our Constitution, we will lose our freedoms, right? Like
Right.
if we don't watch VeggieTales, we're not going to lose our salvation.
right.
There's a definite difference. And yes, I will tell everybody I talk to, read your freaking Constitution, all three of them, because I can guarantee you that's going to give you a much better life.
Bingo. I'm in the middle. Actually, I'm almost done with Isaiah right now. Whew. That one's a good one. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing about it is, Stacy, I know you're still watching, so this is for you. Do not go to the Pine Cone. Come
Had to be brought
down.
up.
Come down to El Greco's. You have to come to El Greco's.
Mm-hmm. So good.
I know. So we ain't talking about Pine
That's
Cone now.
probably like in the top 5 of why I'm looking forward to come back. Is the food was friggin' awesome.
I know. El Greco's is my place.
I
So
can
we-
understand why.
I know, right? I just love it there. And I got a meeting in a little while, and once I leave that
Steve?
meeting,
Sarah and I will do both with you since it's on our way.
I'm gonna probably get my haircut and shave.
What hair? Just kidding.
You know, this
Hey.
is
Hey,
You know-
buddy.
you see all these dreadlocks.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've got some going on in here. That's why it's up right now.
Mom, this is wrong.
No.
Supposed to be moving. Come on, like this.
But you know, it's the Constitution. You got to know your rights. It's so important to know your rights.
Mhm.
it's so important to learn about PMA, how to protect yourself and
Yep.
your family. I mean, there's so much that we have to look at and say, you know what? It's very, very important to do it. And so,
Yeah.
He said, look at all these dreadlocks. Well,
Yeah.
maybe if you're an ant, because then they look big. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not
Nice.
studying you. Stacy, you on a
Nice.
roll today, so we're not gonna stud you today, but but really, you know, we have to
Nice.
we don't know how much time we have
Yeah.
in the country as we know it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if we don't understand our rights and just
Yeah.
like I said last night, this country, you know, the Bible says when the righteous are in office, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice.
Yep.
But when the wicked, the people mourn inside.
Yeah.
I said one
And
of the
look
big
how miserable, half the country is all the time.
all the time because
They
they
always
have
have
to.
a stick up their butt. Oh.
So we have to look at what would it look like
Yeah.
to have righteous leadership at a local level first.
No drag queens in story hour at the library.
I know.
Ooh, Chris Ann Hall actually touched on that one
Yeah.
in one of the ones I was listening to. So I can't say recently because it's from 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, she did it very well. She did share her opinion, but she
Mhm.
also showed, like, constitutionally, if they're tax paying and it's a public library funded by the taxpayers,
Yeah.
technically they have every right to be there as well. And it's up to the parents to oversee, what they give their kids access to. And if we don't want a library having that, then we should probably build our own private one. And
Well,
I
and
know someone actually in the PMA group who wants to start a private library.
Yeah. I want to too. That's one of my goals is to start a private library. But this is the thing, and this is where we have to come back to it. If our country was a moral and virtuous society,
Right.
we wouldn't have the problem of dealing with drag queen story hours because we would know that that is immoral
Yes.
and wrong, and whether or not they have the freedom to do so does not mean they should. Just like when we talk about science, right? The
Right.
scientists are asking how can we do this and what can we do, but not should we do it, right?
Yep.
And
Right.
that's
And so it's not a
where-
matter of legislating our way
Right.
to preventing them from having
Right.
access to that. It's
exactly
wrong. On a moral and ethical level, it's wrong.
right.
And you should know better.
Well, and that's like you said, where the local communities should be fighting back,
Yes.
not on the legislative level, but to say we're not going to tolerate this type of behavior in our society here. You can do it in the big city where they're perfectly free with naked people in the streets.
Yeah.
But we're not going to do that here in our society where we truly
So
believe
that
this is a
means
moral
if
thing.
they can do that in the public library, then we should be able to go in that same public library and preach Christ.
Yep,
Yep.
which is what Kirk Cameron is doing. He's going in and bringing his own books in to read in the public
Yep.
library.
And
And that's the thing,
Kristen
that's
Hall
how-
said the same thing.
Yeah.
That she actually has to fight to get into the libraries to do
Yep.
events and meetings and stuff.
Yep.
And using this as ammunition as to if this is free and public, you need
Yep.
to make access to all of it, including
Right.
those teaching the Constitution, not
Right.
just to the agendas.
Right.
So yes, absolutely, we can and should be using the libraries, public access for taxpayers.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, so if you
Oh,
see people who
wow.
are asking for LGBTQ month to have representation on the library shelves, well, okay, Constitutional Week. Let's go to our library and say you
Yeah.
need to have all the constitutional books out. We need to see a display with the Constitution and with books about the Constitution and with the founding fathers' writings. We have that right to do that. Now
And we
we
should
might have
have
to, like you said,
kingdom,
have a
and
fight
we
on our
should have a
hands to get
kingdom
it.
one too.
There you
Yeah.
go. I mean, there's the Reformation History Month, right? They've got that. So let's start looking for all of those obscure holidays that nobody ever celebrates anymore and say, hey, I want a display of this in the
Yep,
library.
I'm gonna start celebrating Constitution Week. I did a little bit last year, but now that I have more resources to do so, online and in my hands, I'm definitely going to be doing that. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since June is so-called Pride Month, let's make it Kingdom Month as well.
It's also my son and my birthday month, so there's better things to celebrate than that.
Definitely.
I think we ought to make it Kingdom Month.
Take
Yeah,
back the
'cause,
rainbow.
I mean, and yeah, here's the thing. This is the interesting thing about this, because we, like I said, we don't have a moral and virtuous society. And so in order to redeem that, we have to start doing moral and virtuous things in the public square, right? And it's going to
Yes.
get us in trouble with a lot of people, but we don't have to always fight on the legal level to be following the Constitution, because we have these rights already. Just because it's
And
on
that's why we need to show up every day in everyday life. That actually kind of has to do with my quote too.
exactly. So,
Y'all
yeah.
and y'all quotes.
Something actually that kind of encompasses everything we're talking about is when we go back to looking at Jesus' life. Yes, he came to fulfill the old law and the sacrificing and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We look at that on a spiritual and frequency and energetic level. If he came to fulfill sacrifice and sacrificial rituals, I feel like we missed, or it was intentionally kept from us, that whole concept of no longer really having to sacrifice for things. And we need to be living in this upgraded lifestyle of being godly people.
Yep.
And I mean, I found two verses, John 14:12, which I've been really, really digging lately, that Jesus is saying, you know, those who are believers will do the things I did and greater things, because I'm
Yes.
going to the Father.
Right.
And I realized greater does not just mean more of
Right.
because he's gone. It also means greater because there's no longer having to be the sacrifice
Right.
to be able to do. You know,
Right.
we don't have to now make up for and then try to do, because
Right.
it's already been paid for and now we can move forward.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that kind of tied into that was Jesus' last breath. He said, "It is finished."
Yep.
Everything with the old law, all the sacrifice that had to do with the old law and all of that, it is finished, you guys. We don't have to be
Yeah.
functioning at that level anymore. We are
Right.
citizens of the kingdom of God, and as such, it should not be. We shouldn't be looking at living a godly life as sacrifice anymore.
Right.
It's something we choose to do because it's good and we know with the end result. So eating healthier, feeding our minds should not look and feel like sacrifice when you realize we're supposed to treat our bodies as temples, and
Yeah.
it's an honor and sacred duty to do so.
Right.
It's not a sacrifice.
Well,
That's
and
why I'm drinking my smoothie today, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going to honor this temple. I'm going
Yeah.
to take care of it, and I'm going to feed my brain and do
Yeah.
all the good things. And it feels good when I'm making the conscious choice to actively live that way.
Yeah.
Man, it's a life. It's pivotal. It's game changing, because it no longer feels obligatory.
Right.
Like, oh, I have to do this because I know I'm supposed to.
No.
You know.
It's because we have the love of the God of the universe on our side. And why, I mean, just think about what our kids do to please us, right? Because they love us and they want our love.
Mhm.
And how much more should we be looking at? We want to please the God of the universe because, one, he gave us salvation, and two, he is love, and he encompasses all of that. He's justice and mercy and all of those things, and grace. Why wouldn't we want to? Oh, this is this thing that bothers me so much about so many of the churches, is we sit in these pews and we just sing these hymns, and it's like
Passively,
straight face, very passive. We should be cheering in the pews. We should be jumping and dancing. And yes, I know there's certain denominations that are like dancing. Oh my
you?
gosh, you know, like,
Oh.
but we should be celebrating the God of the universe and our place in his kingdom. Like that, we should be the
And
most
talking about
joyful.
how God has shown up in our lives. It
Yes.
should not just be being preached at or to on a Sunday or a Saturday, depending what you believe.
Yes.
It should be showing up every day, looking at the blessings that you've received, looking where God's shown up to support and protect and all the things, and sharing that and being able to boost each other up in this very community-based way.
Yes.
It's not supposed to be this top-down. No offense, Dr. King. I know, I know you're, I know you've upgraded your function, but I know where your background comes, and some pastors and preachers get really offended with this concept that like they're not the authority. We
Yeah.
all were supposed to be ministers of
The gospel,
the gospel.
which means good news.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
yeah,
you're right about that. And the thing about it is, but we also have to also look at it, the order that God has ordained too, because he says, I will give you shepherds after my own heart. The problem is you got shepherds whose heart is far away from God. So, and that's what happens to a lot of things. And I don't get offended when you talk truth. It's when you don't talk truth, I got a problem. But other than that, nothing. And the thing about it is we have to, as the body of Christ, as those true believers, it's time for us to sound like Christ. I said it last night.
Yeah.
If you call yourself following Christ and you are not offending those that doesn't follow Christ, then you're not really following Christ, because he offended people by telling the truth. And if everybody like you, then you're not. So that part. So what we're gonna do now is I gotta go do my coaching thing now. I am now a high school basketball coach. Yes, I get to impart the word of God and basketball into young men's life. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome.
So the Bible says the last shall be first and the first shall be last. So Amber, since you came on the show last, you are now first.
All right. So I know I've shared a lot today. Very feisty. My verse, or my quote, comes from John Adams from a dissertation on the canon and feudal law, 1765. The quote is, "Liberty must at all hazards be supported. We have a right to it derived from our Maker." Maker with a capital M. "But if we had not, our fathers have earned and bought it for us at the expense of their ease, their estates, their pleasure, and their blood." And I shared that yesterday for Memorial Day, and that really is the epitome of what we need to remember. Freedom is not free. Our liberties will not just be protected for us by the government who is trying to actively take it. It is ours to protect and defend on the daily, and you need to act. I'm gonna say you need to, because if you don't, it'll be taken, and it won't just be freely given back. You're gonna have to fight for it. So it's time to step up. It's time to honor our forefathers and what they did for us, and now do it for the future generations, and do it at the expense of our ease, our estates, our pleasure, and our blood to do it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
All right. I'm taking my quote from this book, 5,000 Year Leap, A Miracle That Changed the World. It's written by W. Cleon Skousen. He worked many years in FBI. He worked in, he was a professor. He had a lot of really good stuff to impart. And he was a Christ follower. And he wrote this book based on the historical perspective. The 5,000 Year Leap was throughout centuries of human history, there were small little movements forward, but really no society had created what America created. And so this, they went from this 5,000 years of history of little to no progress to all of a sudden being this amazing nation. And he said it came down to our founding principles. It came down to Christ and his and the laws of nature and nature's God, basically. But anyway, there's more to it than that. But there was a quote he took from another historian named Peter Marshall. And he wrote, and Peter wrote this. He said, "The choice before us is plain: Christ or chaos, conviction or compromise, discipline or disintegration. I'm rather tired of hearing about our rights and privileges as American citizens. The time has come, it now is, when we ought to hear about the duties and responsibilities of our citizenship. America's future depends upon her accepting and demonstrating God's government." And yeah, that pretty much says it all. Like, we have chaos when we do not have those foundational principles. We're losing all of the things that bring about human thriving and human happiness, because we are not returning to those basics, and we're not relearning and reintegrating them into our hearts and minds, the basics and the principles that this world is built upon. We see nations around the world failing and crumbling and destroying themselves because of a lack of that return to principles. And so this is where America is at. We have this, we have one route we can take. There's a fork in the road. Which route are we going to take? Are we going to take it towards ultimate destruction, or a return and a restoration of the good that we've done in this world? So that's what I have to say. And thanks for listening to our rambling conversations. I know, I guarantee you these discussions do have, this foundational thing that we talk about. We talked a lot about human responsibility. We talked about all of that, and we keep going back to that. Read constitutions, read every single one of them, your Bible, your federal and your state constitution, because I can guarantee you that is going to give you the foundation for where we should be headed as American citizens, not where we're heading right now. So.
All right. So my quote is coming out of the book, You Can't Go Wrong Doing Right: How a Child of Poverty Rose to the White House and Helped Change the World, by Robert J. Brown. And the quote is one of Dr. Martin Luther King's quotes. It says, "Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love." And that's what we got to get back to. Doing it because we love God, doing it because we love God creation, doing it because everything we do it to the glory of God. We don't have to get a pat on the back. We don't have to get our name put in lights. We just do it because of the fullness of grace and the love that's in our hearts, to make sure everyone have a great opportunity in life to be free, to know their constitutional rights, to understand that they're God-given rights, and to understand that it's up to us to be the agents of change in this world. So that is my quote for today. And I am going to now just say to y'all, it's been a while. That's why we was all over the place today. They had to release. I think they still got a little more they got to release, but that's what we have to release on
I'm
today.
too tired now.
Well, it's been how many weeks since we've gotten to meet? We have a lot of stuff we wanted to share.
I know, and everybody's schedule, we're trying to catch everybody, and so, but we are really grateful that you guys are with us on Think About It Tuesday. We gave y'all a lot to think about, from government to medical. You got a lot to think about. Just use your Google degree and start looking stuff up, and become more informative on things, and stop letting people tell you or media tell you, and tell yourself. That's why the Bible teaches us to study to show ourselves approved unto God, a workman and not be ashamed, but rightly dividing the word of truth.
Yep.
You need to know truth, not only just the Bible, but what's going on in your country, what's going on in your community, and everything else. So we thank you guys for being with us on today, and we will be back to, real soon after we all look at all of our schedule. And
Jared, you just got to start something, don't you? We don't have time for that.
What do you say?
Anthony Fauci rocks.
Jared just trying to start some stuff.
Can you hear the contempt in my voice?
Hey, you heard when he said Bill Gates was a good man. He really tried to get us. I think when Jared
devil's advocate today, I let her act.
I think when Jared go target practice, he got a picture of Bill Gates Joe Biden and
You better be careful how you're saying that because you might get shut down. I'm just saying.
Well, then we just got to switch to something else. But I mean, it's time out for biting our tongue. It's time to just speak and stuff. But the thing about it is, when we look at what it is, we we're talking about freedom, and then we're trying to worry about what we say.
Well, I know, but it is there is a level of integrity in it. Like, I, as much as my human side would want to, play target practice, I realize it's still not an ethical or moral thing to be doing. And if we're, looking at
it could be target practice with a water gun. It could be a target practice with tomatoes.
I'm just saying, doing our best, always speaking from a place of integrity, and that in this instance is not really one of integrity.
It's not? Well, then I think I better take everybody that did me wrong pictures and throw them away then.
God's going to handle them.
Yeah.
You don't need to.
Ultimately, God is judge, and he will.
Well, see, I knew I was going to get under your nerves sooner or later, but it might as well be at the end than the beginning. So,
yeah, I'm losing words at this point. Oh man, like 2 hours is my limit apparently.
I see.
I get it.
We went to the powwow yesterday, and I was just like, after 15 minutes, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to go home. I'm so exhausted. So,
I get it.
But we just. Cancel culture is real.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm willing to play that game a little bit, knowing I will continue to knowing that the people who need to hear what I have to share will stay having access to me as long as I play the game a little bit. So it's worth it for me to play the little game, knowing that it's a game. And Jared,
it was doing that for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that note, we say to everybody, we love y'all, and we will see y'all soon.
Yeah.